Welcome, Vetters. I have a very special episode for you today. My guest is Stephen Diener. He is the host of the Unidentified Alien Podcast. You can find it on any podcast platform, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Links in the description. We cover such topics as Michael Herrera, the whistleblower who came out last summer of a story of encountering a UFO in Indonesia. We've covered it on the channel and even interviewed Nathan, who was Michael Herrera's team leader. In fact, we have the only interview with Nathan. So find those links in the description. It's 2 different videos. And we also cover Jason Sands, the whistleblower who came out in a Twitter space, and he is actually going to be featured in James Fox's new documentary that's coming out later this year called The Program. And lastly, we talk about the Las Vegas alien incident, where a family encountered a group of aliens in their backyard. They called the police. It was the whole thing, right? Well, that story's not over. And Stephen has been looking into it. And in fact, he's been talking with the lead investigator of these videos. They found something else in the video that hasn't been released. If you're new to the channel, y'all, and you like content like this, please hit that subscribe button, y'all. I put out a new video every day, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do not miss a day. And please hit that like button, Vetters. That really helps out the videos. So thank y'all so much for the support there. And of course, comment down below. What do you think about these new developments, especially in the Las Vegas alien case? Now, please enjoy my interview with Stephen Diener. All right, Stephen, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Patrick. Thanks for having me. This is cool. It's cool to have the kind of the host back to back and back conversation here. So it's pretty cool thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, we can relate on some of this stuff, right? How, where we are with it, as far as reporting on it, looking into it, right? Interviewing people, trying to learn. I don't know what's happening. How long have you been in the space, right? If someone were to ask, oh, how long you been doing it? What would you say?
I would say 3 years, because I'll just measure it from when I started UAP, the Unidentified Alien Podcast, which has almost been 3 years. In July, it's going to be 3 years. So I'll measure it that way. But I know, man, time flies.
Wow.
But as far as, being in it, a solid 15 years where I've really kind of been doing my own homework on it. And
really
interested
okay.
in it. So UAP was kind of a long time coming. So that was
faked.
Yeah, I guess so.
So what brought the show? What made you say, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger and do the show? Because let's explain a little bit, like you're part of a radio program as well. Like, is it the same thing? Like, how does this work? Like, explain this for us.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up, because it's not really something that I bring up a lot. You know what I mean? As a host, I present the show and I present the idea and the topics, and I don't really jump on and tell my life stories. So it's kind of interesting. Even for me to reflect back on it, where I started, radio was always just kind of like something I always wanted to do. When I was like 9 years old, I was doing radio shows in my bedroom. Like, how many 9-year-olds? I'm such a nerd, man. But that's what I was doing. I would have my friends on as guests.
I love it.
Doing that. And it was funny. We had the
so Jim, how was that stovetop last night? Yeah, it was awesome, right? Wasn't it? Did Mom make the mac and cheese the way you wanted? Yeah, I know. She's awesome.
Yeah. I should try to find some of those old shows.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
I think it'd be funny.
That's so great.
We had like the old stereos where we put the cassette tape in and hit play and record at the same time. So I was doing all that as a kid. And so as I, grew older and things like that, I got into radio through high school and then through college. And I ended up landing in a position at a local radio station here in the West Palm Beach area, originally for sports, actually. And I got into some sports talk shows, and then got into some news talk radio shows. And I was the producer / co-host on News Talk Radio down here in South Florida. And then it came to one of my coworkers, who, if anybody listens to UAP here in your audience, they'll know the name Karen Curtis. Karen and I were coworkers at our radio station way back when. And she came up to me and said, you know so much about this alien stuff, because we would talk about it in the halls, off
Just
the
here
air,
and
so to
there.
speak.
Yeah.
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 And it was starting to get more in the news a little bit, with after the New York Times article, Marco
Okay.
Rubio, he was talking about it. So we kind of started talking about it a little bit. We kind of felt safe to kind of talk to each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And so as I started talking more about it, she realized, she's like, you know, a lot of the stuff off the top of your head. You should do a podcast about it. And I was like, I've thought about doing that, but I'm not sure. I'm the sports guy, I'm the producer guy. Like, how are people going to react to that? And now it's like who I am. And I'm so happy that I decided to do it and really just take a leap of faith and create the show. I'll tell you this right now, Patrick, I never expected UAP to become what it has become, and hopefully continues to grow. I mean, I just hit 200,000 downloads in May on audio platforms. You know, big Twitter following now and stuff like
Wow.
that, and growing TikTok. I never expected this stuff. I wasn't even going for it, but the fact that people took to it is just so flattering to me, and I'm just going to keep trying to do what I do and hopefully do a good job at it. So that's kind of the background.
That's awesome. And the show focuses on you doing interviews, you giving your take on thing. Like, what is it? What exactly?
So it's kind of both, actually. It started as me just kind of digging into the stories that interested me throughout time. I mentioned like 15 years kind of being into the subject. So I actually would again, I'm a nerd. I would take notes while watching different shows or reading different things. And I would find a bit, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I want to find out more about that down the road. And I would actually write notes in my phone on the notes app. And it just compiled all these notes from like 5 years. And so I just kind of took it from there, where the first episode I did was the story of Rendlesham Forest.
Oh
John
yeah.
Burroughs, Jim Pennington, we
Yeah.
know that one,
Yeah.
early
It's a good
1980s.
one.
It was one of the ones that really kind of stuck with me throughout the years. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to do a podcast about alien stories, I'm going to start with Rendlesham Forest. And so that's how it began. I started really just digging in and giving details on the stories that I found interesting. And my model behind it was kind of give the details, tell the story, kind of give my 2 cents on it, and then let everybody decide what they think. Was that
Yeah.
something that is plausible? Do you think that's a true story? I'm not here to preach it. I just want to tell it to you because I find it interesting. So that was
Yeah.
kind of the whole, background of the show and the way it's gone. And then I kind of started the interviews over the past year and a half, couple of years, and that kind of developed into a spin-off of UAP Weekly. So they kind of go hand in hand now.
Got it. What do you like most about doing the interviews?
The spontaneity. I
Interesting.
love, you and I, it's what we do, right? We talk to people, we tell stories, we try to relate to people in the way that we host the show. And when I bring on a guest, I really enjoy just writing down notes and kind of just topics, right? I'll write down kind of bullet points. But from there, on a bullet point, that one bullet point can lead into 5 or 6 different
Oh,
questions for me. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that, where I know the bullet points, but I don't know what the answer is going to be, you
Totally.
know? So I love waiting to hear what the answer is going to be from the person I'm talking to. And then that's going to spark something else in my head. And that conversation just snowballs into ways that I could have never planned for. So that I love that. I love that about an interview.
Great answer. Great answer. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, to be honest with you. I love the spontaneity of it as well. I liked it. Okay, it's potentially going to go this direction, but it could go here. It could go here, and I'm with it. I'm here for the ride. In fact, I'm hoping for something like that to happen. If I'm being honest, right?
You
In a
never
way.
know.
Come on, yeah. No, that's cool. What's been your favorite interview you've done, or most proud of, or the one you tell people about the most? I don't know how you think about it, you know.
Oh man, that's a great question. I've never actually thought about that before. Um, there's a couple that come to mind. I don't know. So there's three, and I'm not trying to do a cop out here, but there's kind of three that
Yeah, no, of course, I get
you
it.
know.
Kind of, yeah,
Yeah, it's like
totally.
different categories.
I would do the same. I would say the same thing, dude. Like, I get it.
So the one that the first one that pops into my head, and and I don't know if this is a guy you've spoken to yet, but he's kind of not bipolar. What's the word I'm looking for? Polarizing, not bipolar, polarizing. He's kind of I'm bipolar. I don't know. He's kind of a polarizing character on social media. Is Ashton Forbes?
Oh yeah, I had Ashton on.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's my opinion. He's a cool guy.
yeah,
I like Ashton.
yeah.
So, we're on the same page there. I know, again, kind of polarizing. He has his haters online. They come out pretty strong against him. It is what it is. You and I have both been there.
They will right now listening to this unvetted. Okay, I promise you.
That's right.
It's I had people unsubscribe from my Patreon because I interviewed him and just had him on the show. And then I did a live stream with him afterwards so he could answer fans' questions. Ashton didn't back down.
No.
Ashton was open to anything. Ashton didn't say, hey, don't bring up this. Don't talk about this. He did nothing, dude. He was open. He was willing.
Yep.
And I give it to the guy. So, yeah, I have no problem. But, yes, that's hilarious. Well, I'm glad you had him on. Okay, so he's one of them that you had on.
Yeah, he's one of them. So we've actually spoken like 4 or 5 times. I kind of lost count on the show. And it kind of came about last year. So when he first started kind of to gain steam, when he started to get noticed as far as what he was doing and presenting with, we all know about it, the orbs disappearing, the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Yeah. I think it was last August. I might have spoken to him the first time. So it was like a few months, or maybe it was October. But anyway, it was a few months into his investigation. I was like, this is pretty interesting. So we've kept in touch, and again, cool guy. He's good in my book. Think what you want about Ashton, but I think he's great. And like you said, what's great about him is he is willing to answer. You have a lot of people who say stuff about him, but Ashton responds to everything, and he's got an answer for everything. So I always like that about doing an interview with him.
He was also willing to debate. I put out a thing to have Mick West and Ashton Forbes debate. I said I would host it, and Ashton was like, I'll do it. And Mick was like, I don't want to do this. And then I see Mick tweeting out more stuff about MH370. I was like, dude, just do it already. Like, you said there's nothing to debate about, but you continue tweeting about it. Let's just, do this for the community. We can add a charity. I don't know. Right. But Ashton is willing to debate. And there was a few people he was willing to debate, and they all said no.
Yeah. And that's what I like about him is he steps up to the plate. Say what you want about him. If you're an Ashton hater, by all means, that's your thing. But he steps up to the plate, and he has answers to his claims. So
I agree. I agree. Yes. He's willing to talk about it. What else do you want from somebody, right? You may not like the answer, but if you don't step up to the sit down at the table, what's the point, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay, so Ashton Forbes is one. Who's another that's sort of like impactful on your show, and you just
Anthony Williams. So Anthony Williams is a guy.
I'm not familiar with him. Okay. I like this already. Let's go.
Might be why you're not familiar with the name, because it's not his real name. It's not a real person. Now he's a real person, but he has to use a pseudonym. So
okay.
This is what actually, I don't want to drone on about it. So long story short, he's a guy that reached out to me. He was a listener of UAP. And I had, no pun intended, I had to vet him a little bit when he reached out to me, because I wanted to make sure that, someone's not pulling my leg, they're not catfishing me. Because when he reached out to me, he said, hey, look, I'm so-and-so. I'm stationed at so-and-so here in the United States. And this is my position within the U.S. military. I was in the special ops, served in Afghanistan, served in Iraq. Real deal guy. Okay.
Wow.
And that was my reaction. So I'm like, okay.
You're braver than me, dude. I ignore all those messages. I do. I ignore them all. No thanks.
Did. No, honestly, I almost did. And I don't blame you, because it's scary. You're like, oh my
God,
here.
Dude, totally.
But it turns out he was the real deal. And he liked the show, and he identified with the stuff that I was talking about. And the first message he wrote to me, he said, you're on to a lot of things. You're off on a couple of things, and I'd love to talk to you about it if you'd like to connect. I said, okay, let's give it a shot.
You're like, I'll hear him out.
He's a great guy. I heard him out. Again, vetted him. Did my own research on him. He is who he says he is, and we developed a relationship enough off the air, again, so to speak, to where he felt comfortable enough to come on to UAP under an assumed name of Anthony Williams and give inside information. You had
Dude.
Patrick. He's
Wow.
an active military intelligence officer. This guy. He's a military intelligence analyst. Was actually
Okay.
what I should say. Um, like he's not active duty anymore. He's not on tour anymore. But he's an analyst. That's his job, and I can say that because he said it before. Um, so to have his insight is what really blew me away when I had him on the
What did
show,
he say?
especially.
Like I'm curious. Like without spoiling it
Yeah.
too much, because I want people to check out the episode. But like what and how long ago was this?
So I've had him on a few times. The first one was probably about a year ago, and he's been on. That's another guy I've had on a lot. Probably I think about 4 times. Anthony Williams has
You
been
know
on the
what? I'm
show.
gonna bring up. I should have done this earlier. This is your
No,
show
it's
here,
okay.
so of course I'm
Yeah.
gonna put links in the description for people to go check it out and see it, of course, and listen. But okay, so Anthony Williams, he came on a few times,
Yes.
and what was like some big stuff? Like I don't know, maybe just a few things he said.
So the original idea was, and I framed it as military intelligence whistleblower. That was the original kind of idea behind having him on.
Okay.
And so what he did was when he came on, he kind of gave a behind the scenes of how much the US military and intelligence community is actually paying attention to this stuff. And a lot of the stuff that we see when it comes to, what the Pentagon is saying or what Arrow is saying is essentially BS. And when
Yeah.
he's, a guy like Sean Kirkpatrick, which probably comes to no surprise to you and anybody listening or watching, is that guy is he's a front man, and he basically is out there
Yeah.
to say what he has to say and divert attention from the real thing. Um, so that was the first thing, and basically kind of shining a light on this is the real deal. It's talked about a lot, and it's
Behind the
investigated
scenes, he's saying, like behind
behind
the
the
scenes,
scenes.
we're dealing with this. Okay.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
And that it's something that is taken seriously by the U.S. government and the intelligence agencies, more serious than they let on. So that was the first thing that was kind of like the whoa moment when he was on the show.
Sure.
Another thing that was kind of like a whoa moment was he spoke about, and I'm trying to remember the exact figure, and I don't remember, but I'm gonna give the best estimate I can. He gave an example of how much money, and this isn't a political thing, but he gave an example of how much money the U.S. has spent on Ukraine in the Ukraine-Russia war versus how much money we're spending investigating UAP, and it blows it
Okay.
out of the water. Like
Oh,
the
really?
money that we put toward behind the scenes toward
Yeah.
investigating the UAP issue, when they say nothing to see here in the Arrow report, complete lie, because we're spending more
Off the
money on that
books.
off the
Off the
books.
books.
Right. It's not reported, right? And I
Wow.
think what got to me too was, and this was in I think our most recent interview, they have in this military intelligence community, in this analyst community, they have basically call it a chat room. And this is actually where Jason Sands came from, which we can get to later.
I was
Jason
gonna say
Sands was
that's what made me think of it when you said the chat room thing.
Jason Sands was a colleague of his. So
Got it.
most recently, when I spoke to Anthony Williams, we spoke about Jason Sands.
Oh,
But we did,
really?
yes.
Honestly,
So
when you said military analyst, intelligence analyst, I thought of Jason Sands because so was he. He was a teacher of some sort, right? With
yeah,
that potentially. Anyway, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, not at all, not at all. So essentially, what happened there was we spoke about Jason Sands, which we can get into if you like, and he also spoke to me
Definitely.
about what is being said or how many guys. Because I asked him again, this was kind of like the spontaneous moment in the interview. I said, Anthony, how many guys in the intelligence community talk about this stuff? Like, it's not just you and Jason Sands, I assume. His answer was hundreds. You have hundreds of guys as military intelligence analysts and in the military community who talk about, and this even goes back to a guy like Ryan Graves, who talk about their sightings and what they've seen in the past and just talk amongst themselves. And they're super interested in the videos that come across, which they get a lot of. They get a lot of videos that they
Wow.
analyze of orbs, of, the triangles, the cigars. There was one, this actually was the other thing that kind of blew my mind that he told me about. And please tell me if you've heard about this, because I
Okay.
haven't heard anybody else talking about this. But according to Anthony Williams, who we're speaking of, there's been incidents where over Colorado and in that area, over the Colorado area, I believe, and I
Okay.
want to say Wyoming, those two areas,
Oh, Wyoming.
where they've seen reported eyewitness reports from local police and local military of giant, as he put it, giant black triangles flying over secret nuclear installations. These are off the book nuke sites. These aren't the ones that they would, report as part of our arsenal. These are secret
Okay.
areas. And these giant black triangles, this is as of October of 23 to now. This is still happening. And what I
Oh, this is
found,
current. They're flying over, like,
yes,
it's the current thing.
yes, it's still
Wow.
happening, and no one is talking about it. And I felt like I was going crazy so much so where I asked him, I'm like,
I
Anthony,
haven't
how's
heard
no
of
one
this.
talking about this? You haven't heard about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-mm.
I've actually, him and I have spoken about it off the show, because that's the first time he told me about it. And he's like, dude, you have to hear about this. And this was something, it got so bad, Patrick, that the first time around, this past October in 23, it was pursued by what's called, I think they're called a Super Huey, something like that. It's a big military helicopter. If I'm getting the name wrong, I apologize.
Chased one of these triangle crafts.
It tried to chase it down. You had soldiers in this big U.S. military helicopter in pursuit on radio, saying what they saw, and they were pursuing this giant black triangle. And eventually, now these big helicopters, they kind of lumber, versus what a Black Hawk would do or something like that. So
Sure.
they weren't really able to keep pace. But this is something that's
Did you hear a recording of this, or this just what he said?
this is what he said. I haven't
Got
heard
it.
the
Got it. Got it.
recording, but
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
what he's told in his position, there is a recording of this. It's on record. It's on radar. It's in the reports. And
Is it just the one site? Is it just this one incident, or are there multiple on radar and recording? Like, you know what I mean? Because you said it happened multiple times. I'm curious if they have more recordings.
yeah, that I'm not sure of, but I know now I can assume they do, because it would make sense, right? If there's one, then there's probably multiple.
Yeah.
But I know that it's been seen multiple times, and they're really not talking about it. And I guess the explanation.
How big you think it is? What? How big you talk? I mean,
He
you
gave the
talking here?
example of 3 football fields. So
Three
about 300
football
yards.
fields. Holy cow!
That
Okay.
was my reaction. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
That's
So
huge.
and I asked him, because I was just kind of incredulous. I was like, how is it that this is happening? You have a 300-yard sized black triangle flying over these, secret, super sensitive sites for the U.S. military, and it's not being talked about. His explanation was, well, dude, think about it. If we have craft flying over secret sites that we don't want anybody to know about to begin with, what are we supposed to say? Are we supposed to say that a craft that we don't know where it comes from and who it is flying over a site that we can't even tell you exists? So it makes the U.S. look weak and kind of not knowing what's going on. So I think that's why it's not
Sure.
spoken about. But it's
I
why.
mean, sure. That totally makes sense. If it's real, if that is true that happened, that explanation makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
So
If it's meant to be a black site, nuclear site, I mean, a triangle craft, 900 feet, right?
yeah.
Interesting. Is it doing
Right.
anything? Is it interacting with the nuclear site? Is it doing something? Like, why are they chasing it? Just to check it out, or it did something?
No, I think they just wanted to figure out what it was doing, right? Like, what
Just
is this
observe
thing,
it.
and why
Yeah.
is it
What?
flying over? Right.
My
See if
God.
you can figure anything out.
Wow.
As far as I know, I wasn't told if it was doing anything specific other than essentially surveying the field, right? So I
What do you do if you catch up to that thing in the chopper? Like,
I know.
you get on. No, I'm not getting on. You jump on it. I'm not doing that, bro. I got the rope. I'm holding the rope, bro. I got you. I'm holding the rope. You go.
What do you do? right?
I don't know, man. That's crazy. Yeah, I think about the scenario of like, okay, what happens when you catch up to this thing,
Right.
right? Like, remember when Commander David Fravors like the Tic Tac, right? He's like, oh, I saw this down. I'm like, I'm gonna go chase this thing down. Like, what are you gonna do
What do you
if you
get?
catch up to this thing? Like,
It's
that's the balls on that guy, man.
I know.
His testimony is great, but no,
Oh,
what a crazy story. So what's the current temperature on that story, on this incident with the black triangles and all and nuclear site? Like, where's it at? Is it just floating around? Is somebody doing something about it? Does he have any power over this guy, Anthony Williams, or
he doesn't. He's kind of, and I hate saying this because it kind of makes it sounds like it diminishes him, and I don't mean it that way, but he's kind of a cog in the machine. If that
sure?
makes
Well, the
you know
machine's huge, so I'm sure he doesn't take that for
right.
you know what I
And
mean.
I mean, he's look super accomplished
Even the
guy.
president of the United States is a cog in the
Yes,
machine.
right. It's
So
true. So I don't mean that
we
in a
all
negative
are.
way at all. You know what I
Totally,
mean?
totally, totally.
So it's he's in the position basically to analyze and report. So
Has he
that's
had any firsthand, like Jason Sands, has he had any firsthand experiences?
he has not as extreme as Jason Sands, but that's actually how our conversation started. Him and I, when he reached out to me, he told me his story, where it was actually he and his wife is also in the military, has a lot of flight experience, and they were sitting out in their backyard on on base, and these lights came flying over. And my first reaction to him was, well, dude, it must have been Starlink. I mean, I've seen Starlink satellites. I actually saw them a couple weeks ago, and it was really cool. It
Yeah.
was like 30 lights equidistant from each other flying in a line. And it's like, that's really distinctive. You know Starlink when you see it. And he's like, no, dude. He's like, this wasn't Starlink. He's like, I know what that looks like. And he's like, there was no sound to it. He's like, you have to understand something. My wife and I can identify an aircraft by the sound of it. We can hear it, half a mile away. We don't see it. We hear it. We're like, oh, that's so and so. That's our experience. And we were like, we don't know what we're seeing. There's no sound to it, so we can't identify it. There are these strange lights. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. And that was their experience. So he actually ended up doing his own digging because he was just, kind of curious about it, like anybody else, right? You hear about it in the news and you're like, oh, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Aliens, UFOs, who knows? But then he
Is his
saw it.
sighting recently? Or
This was about, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
okay. Just
And
the
he,
reason I ask is because Jason Sands is like from the 90s, right?
right,
So
yeah. I
okay,
think
just curious. Like
95 or
it's
96. So
yeah,
yeah, his
yeah.
his, his is later
Okay,
than that. He was
got
kind of
it.
like new to it. So from there, he just kind of dug into it himself and started listening to podcasts and came across UAP, and the rest is history.
Awesome. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. So
Right.
you still talk to this guy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We talk outside of the show. We keep up with each other.
And I mean, I don't know. I mean, this would be my first question. If you were like my good friend, we were hanging out, and you just told me that story, right? I would
Right.
say, dude, how do you know this guy isn't bullshitting you?
Right. Yeah.
Like, what do you
That's
say to that? I
something.
don't know. Is that anything you've thought of, or
Oh, for sure. For sure. Because my biggest fear is someone's going to approach me. And I think about this constantly when someone approaches
and
me.
feed you some? So I get it, dude. Trust me. If
Yes.
anyone gets it, I get it. I promise.
You get it. You get it. The last thing I want is to be approached, fall for something in a malicious manner that makes me look stupid and makes me give faulty information to people who trust me. I
Sure.
don't want to be giving out faulty information. So, and I know
Yeah.
you don't either. So that's something that we both
Yeah.
struggle with, and it's hard.
I did it with Jason Sands. I said that he killed a blue alien, and he had to respond to that. And I heard that, right?
Right.
And I admitted who I heard that from because I don't do anonymous sources, and that was eating me up because I don't like. I personally can't do what you done with this Anthony guy. Like I can't do that. I'm like I'm not in that for this game in the long haul. To have these sort of personal connections, and I get it. We all going through this journey differently, and there is a part of me that wants to trust me.
Mm,
There is. I've been approached. I've gotten emails. I've gotten all kind. I do this. I work with this. Here's my, screenshots of their ID badges. All kinds of things. Right. Ready.
Right.
Ready. I've been invited into the UFO group. This sort of insider group. Like, do you want to be part of the chat? No, I don't
Right.
want to. I get scared, honestly, because it's like I come at this looking at this topic very like fantastically, almost like childlike, in the sense of I'm in awe of these
Sure.
stories and fascinated by reality changing truths, right,
Mm-hmm.
that could exist. And I don't know, I don't want to get to like X-Files with it, but like I commend people like yourself because I get to live vicariously through you doing it, and I get like the juice from the press, of you. So I commend people like yourself who are out here doing that kind of work, because we do need that. We do need people to build some of these relationships and vet some of these people, because some of them are coming out to tell the truth, right? Some are not, and some are. And I think it is important to just hear what's
Yeah.
going on, right? Like you said, let's hear him out.
Yeah.
Let's hear him
No,
out. What's he got to say? So, my
exactly.
props to you for doing it, sticking your neck out. I don't know if people realize that you are sticking your neck out. So I hope people give you that credit and that due, and give you a little more leeway and benefit of the doubt if you were to say something, whatever. I'm loosey goosey here a little bit more, and I definitely shouldn't have said that about Jason Sands. I do, and I admitted it the next video and apologized. And I tried to get Jason Sands on. Hey
Yeah.
man, okay, come on, tell your story. I'll just let you talk like
Right.
this. Of course, I'm going to ask some questions. Why wouldn't I? I
Right.
mean, listen to the story you're telling me. Of course, I'm going to ask.
Sure.
I would ask questions if my friend said I went to karaoke last night and it got crazy. I would be asking a million questions. Well, what happened?
Right.
Right.
Sure.
So you're telling me the story in the desert with an alien. Yeah, I have questions. So anyway, what do you feel with Anthony Williams, Jason Sands, this guy
Yeah.
Steve? I don't know if you've heard of him. He's sort of in relation to Jason Sands. That's a pseudonym as well.
Right.
This Lightbringer guy that just came out, who I don't think he's connected militarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
But having some of the same sort of thoughts or ideas presenting right from their story that kind of aligns, right? That
Yeah.
there is this cover up behind the scenes. There are these programs happening. We are retrieving craft, bodies, you know. Um, I don't know. You see all these whistleblowers coming out. What are your thoughts? I mean, Anthony Williams vouched for Jason Sands.
He did. Yeah. And so I'll kind of tie it all together when it comes to how do I know Anthony Williams is for real, and why do I think Jason Sands is for real. So, by the way, thank you for saying what you said. I do appreciate that. It means a lot because it's nerve wracking, you know, because it really can go one of two ways. They can be catfishing me, or it's real, and then I'm really sticking my neck out because if the wrong people get mad at me, I'm in trouble. So I appreciate that.
Of
Um,
course.
it's so first with Anthony Williams, he's a guy that I was able to vet in a way that his history in a particular mission was written about in a book relating to a famous military mission within the past, I'll just say 5 years. Um, his story and his real name is all in there in this book. So what he was telling me, I was able to check out through an actual documented history of military action.
Got it.
Um, and then I was just talking to him more. I was able to find out more about his work. I was actually able to see in some things with his work. So he is who he says he is. And I feel 150,000% saying that, confident in saying that Anthony Williams is who he says he is. If anybody's ever heard my episodes with him or hasn't, go into that knowing I'm extremely confident on that he's the guy.
Yeah.
So that being said, that's why I believe Jason Sands is also the real deal. Anthony Williams came to me in December of 23. And I apologize. I've told the story on my show, so if anybody's heard it, and it's like, it's like old news if you've heard it, so I apologize for that.
No, no
But
worries. I haven't heard it.
yeah, perfect. So he came to me just, over the phone, private conversation in December of 23, and said, dude, you are not going to believe this, but there's a guy named Jason Sands. He's like, you cannot talk about him. You cannot say his name. He's like, I'm telling you in confidence, but you're going to be able to talk about him in about 6 months or so, because he is going to be in a James Fox documentary coming out next year, now in 24. And he said, this guy actually, he's like, I was floored because this is a guy I've known for a few years. And it's a guy that I know from the military intelligence community. Like he's been in the analyst community. He's like, so when we found out he was going to be in this documentary, we were all like really supportive of him. Like, dude, we're really proud of you. That takes a lot of courage to stand up and say this and to do these things. And he's like, but there was those handful of dissenters who came out and said, you're such an idiot for doing this. You're putting us all in danger. And because of that, and I was told this, again, this whole thing was in December. And because of that, Jason Sands kind of went into hiding. I asked Anthony, I said, look, if possible, I'm like, I'm not trying to step on James Fox's toes by any means. I respect his work. But if he wants to come on UAP and talk, then that's great. Again, if they're supposed to wait until after the documentary, then we'll wait until next year. He tried reaching out to Jason Sands at that point in mid-December, and he was nowhere to be found. He was scrubbed off the system. His bosses told him not to bring him up anymore. Like, this was real deal stuff. It got really eerie to the point where Anthony, my contact, was worried that something had happened to him. He's like, this is really bad. Like, this is a guy that would answer my emails at the most 48 hours later. Nothing would ever take more than 2 days. And now he's just gone, not taking my calls, anything.
Disappeared.
Just disappeared.
Yeah.
And then when Jason Sands, so he told me Jason Sands' story of what we know now. He told me that back in December about the blue alien and in the desert, came up across it in the Jeep. His commanding officers told him not to stop. You're going to see somebody out there in fatigues. Don't stop. He stopped anyway. And that was the story I was told, is the story that Jason Sands has come out and told since. And I told that in for like 6 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, when is this going to come out? So when Jason came out on Twitter Spaces, can I tell you, I got up, it was a Sunday morning. I'll never forget this. It was a Sunday morning, and I was rolling out of bed to get ready for church. And I checked my phone, and I see my UAP Twitter account blowing up. Like, what the heck happened here? It's Sunday morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. What could possibly be happening? And it was Jason Sands' Twitter space. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he came out. I don't believe this. So I had to go to church with this on my mind. I'm like trying to compartmentalize all this. I'm like in the church parking lot making a video saying what I knew. So I was just trying to put it all together. And even Anthony Williams was shocked by it. And because I got with him that afternoon, I said, dude, did you see this? Jason Sands came. He's like, oh my gosh, he's alive. Like, that was our first thought. We're like, thank God he's okay. Because we were.
Oh, shit. Scared. So nobody had heard from him, period, 6 up until that point.
Right. 5 or 6 months until.
When did he come out? What was it, April?
I think it was late April, wasn't it? I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think it was late April.
It's somewhere around there. Yeah, because you know what? It was like the end of the beginning of the third week of April, somewhere in there.
Yeah, mid-April.
Because I had Danny Sheehan on, and I asked him about Jason Sands, and that was right when that happened. It was that weekend before. Okay, yeah. I mean, I made all those videos and everything. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that he had been gone this whole time, and then just popped out with this story.
5 months, man, and I didn't tell anybody about it.
I knew for like 3 weeks I had heard his name, Nicole Sackett, who I said on the show. I said who told me. She had told me that story and said the same, like that everyone was struggling with do we come out with this information?
Right.
I don't know what's going on. You know, yeah, everyone was surprised apparently that knew about his story. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It
don't
really,
know.
but as I hate to use the word insane, it's the wrong word. As out there, I guess, as Jason's story sounds, because it's so unique, I think a lot of people have a hard time accepting it. Look,
It
I
is
have
unique.
confidence in the. I have a hard time accepting it, and I have extreme confidence in where Jason's coming from. I know he's a real guy. I know where he worked
Sure.
and what he does in his history, and I still have a hard time accepting it because if we
He
accept
seems
something like that,
credible, right?
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's
think
it's
about
it's trying to balance that, right? It's on one end you've got this fantastical story that your brain's just
yes,
like, there's just no way. And on the other end you go, this is a normal guy that has this and X, and why in the hell would he make this up, right?
right,
Your brain is like, what do I do? Like, that's where I'm at. Like, I
yeah.
don't understand. I don't understand it.
I think it's really, and I don't understand either because, and I think that's what it is. And I think I'm glad you and I are on the same page with that. Real quick is I don't like when people in the UAP community try to act like they have all the answers.
Yeah.
Nobody has all the answers.
No.
We're all basically just researching and reacting. It's really what it is. I mean, when
Yeah.
it you know what I mean when it comes down to
So
it.
I'm stealing that. That's it, Steven. It's just researching and reacting. That's all we can do.
That's all we can do because and even people like Anthony Williams who are in it, that's all they can
Yeah,
do is research and react.
sure.
So that's just kind of the position that we're in. So to say that we can understand it or have all the answers, I'm okay with saying that I don't have all the answers, that I don't fully understand all this. It's
Totally.
unbelievable, the stuff that we hear.
Absolutely.
But I
It
will
is.
say this I guess, in defense of Jason Sands and his story and his background, maybe more than anything. And Anthony Williams brought this up the last time I had him on, which is a guy like Jason Sands and a guy like Anthony Williams. When you're in that position, you have top secret clearances up the wazoo. And in order to keep those top secret clearances, you have to pass tests that the government spends thousands of dollars on every 5 years. So these aren't small things. You got to take polygraphs. You got to do all these different things. They check
Sure.
your background like, crazy. They'll talk to first grade teachers. They do everything. Every 5 years, they look into where you've traveled, who you've contacted, all this different stuff. Every 5 years, guys like Anthony and Jason have to go through these top secret clearances. So when we talk about Jason Sands, his story is 30 years old. That means he's gone through 6 different top secret clearances since then and has passed every single one. And not only has kept his top secret clearances, but has added on to them. So it's just something to consider.
No, that's true. I mean, to be fair, again, I'm not saying it, but he could have come up with the story in the last couple of years, and that wouldn't have mattered, right?
That's fair.
What
Yeah.
when it came true. But regardless of that, um, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know what's
Right.
going on. I'm happy that people want to come forward and talk about it, and you know, that's it. I mean, I don't know what else there is to do. Hear from these people, um, find out, I guess, as much information as we can. Let me ask you this question: is everything that Jason Sands is saying, like in the Twitter space, whatever, like, is that DOPSR approved? And the same thing with Anthony Williams. Is what he's telling you just off the cuff? Like, is he breaking laws by talking to you?
No, and I'm glad you asked that actually because I want to make that clear. He's careful to make sure not to overstep any boundaries. So anything that we talk about, he's able to talk about. And when we do talk, I say to him like, "Hey, look, I'm going to ask you a question. If you can't answer it, I totally get it. Just answer it to the
Totally.
best of your ability." And
Yeah.
he's shot me down plenty of times, privately and on the air, where he's
Got
like,
it.
"Yeah, I can't get into that. It's too classified." So no, but
Got
I'm
it.
glad you asked that because actually I wanted to say that
Sure.
everything's on the up and up. So
So what do you think
it's
about
just
Jason Sands? Is his DOPSR approved? Like what he's saying, like his
so that's an
story?
interesting one. I I don't know how to answer it exactly, because I think in Jason Sand's kind of situation, I think he's using more like the Whistleblower Protection Act more than
So he's
anything.
just talking off the cuff here.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's as far as I
Interesting.
understand. I could be wrong about that, but
Sure.
that's as far as I understand.
Sure. Sure.
So, but this is stuff again. He hasn't lost his job. He hasn't lost any clearances as far as I know. Like, he's still working. So
He's going to do more as far as I remember, he said he would do more interviews after James Fox's documentary comes out,
yeah,
and that there would be more information about his story in that he didn't want to reveal yet, right? And to
right.
be fair to him, like I said about Ashton Forbes, like we both said, I will be fair to Jason. He went into Twitter space and was willing to take questions from anybody.
Yeah, yeah. And look,
So say what you want.
Yeah,
Even to myself, right? I got to say that to myself, Patrick. Hey, he was willing to go in, and which is why I wanted to have him on. I want to have any of these guys on that want to say, okay, come on, let's talk. I don't have any problem hearing this stuff, but am I going to be a little skeptical? I mean, it would be kind of abnormal to not be a little skeptical of some of these stories that are so from the norm, right? So separated from what I might understand as normal reality. So it's okay to kind of, in my opinion, have a few questions, or maybe not skeptical is the right word, but just, okay, what is going on? I mean, trust me, I'm fascinated by it, to be honest with you. And more than anything, I want to know, is there anything I need to be worried about? Right. When I hear these stories, that's what I think about. Is there anything I need to be worried about?
Yeah.
At home. I mean, we got triangles flying around over nuclear sites that we can't get a hold of, right? Other thing. I don't know. I hear Jason Sand's story, and we're working with, if you believe his story, then you're going to have to believe the accordion that comes with it, right? When you pull it out, it's like all the rest of it that comes with it, meaning we're working with ETs, there's labs, there's that, right? Like all of that becomes part of the story, right? So I don't know, is that worrisome? Like, is this, I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. How do you feel about this whole threat? Like, is it a threat? Like, should we be worried? We're not worried. Everyone's got like a different opinion there. Like, no, they're friendly. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, well, you're 100% right in the, kind of unraveling the repercussions of this stuff, right? If we can say that Jason Sand's story is true, well, then that means we're working with ETs. And if we're working with ETs, then the Eisenhower Treaty must be true. And if that's true, then Dulce Base must be true. And Roswell must be true. Like, it would be just this massive domino effect where one thing would
Exactly.
lead to another. And I think for me, and I think for you too, that's what makes it so unbelievable.
100%.
Is that realization of oh my gosh,
but also intriguing.
Yes.
Right. At the same time, it's equally like, oh man, that's correct. Like, if that is true, like, wow.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Would that mean the Galactic Federation is true? I mean, that's one of the most unreal stories out there. And I've been wanting to dig into that more.
And Carl Nell sort of dropping that hint at Salt.
Right.
Kind of, right? By mentioning Homeboy from Israel, he's kind of implying potentially that he backs up that statement. But to be fair to Carl, no, that's also a stretch on our part, like at least on my part, like, oh, dude, I got to connect all that. But is that what he's trying to hint at? I don't know. Why bring him up? What part of him are you bringing up? Right.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, what part of his career or his position, or what? Why mention his name? Because it said, oh, like these people have said, right? Well, then let's look at what he said. Galactic Federation.
Yep.
What?
I mean, it was these Israeli space minister, right? Like, he was.
Yeah. It wasn't just some schlub saying this.
Right.
This is like,
it's like
it's nuts.
Like the defense minister of space, pretty much.
Israel it's just nuts. It's just like crazy. And then you hear some of the other stories behind it that also intrigue me. Avi Loeb trying to get in contact and can't get in contact. No, again, Carl Nell bringing that, like, and I don't know, man. I don't know. You hear Tucker Carlson talking about we got agreements with these supernatural forces. The American government has agreements, and supposedly the dude from Project Unity just said that Donald Trump, he got information that it's Donald Trump that told Tucker Carlson that. Not that it's true or not, just that
Right.
he got that information from Donald Trump. And what did the Israeli space minister say about this galactic federation? It was Donald Trump was a part of
Yep.
this, right? Like,
Yep.
so dude, I'm just like,
It kind
is
of comes
this
together though,
real?
doesn't it? Which is, yeah, that's the scary thing.
Is it the host of The Apprentice is now running? Like, is this how the world, is this really real? Like, we're in a Simpsons episode.
I know.
We're in a Simpsons episode. It's equally fascinating. I mean, it is, man. What's
actually,
like? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Sue.
no. I wanted to ask you a question. I wanted to get your opinion on something because you brought up Tucker Carlson, where he was recently on with Sean Ryan.
Yeah,
who I think does a great job. So shout out to him.
I love Sean Ryan's show. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he does fantastic work, and the different kind of topics that he covers and the
Dude,
guests
the
he has on.
production too. How great
Yeah.
is the production on that show?
Really good.
So good.
Really good stuff.
So good.
So I admire his work.
Yeah.
But when he had on Tucker, he mentioned, Tucker did, about the spirituality aspect. And this is something that I've always found really maybe the biggest question of all for me since the beginning has always been, how does this connect to theology? I mentioned earlier, I was going to church on Sunday morning when I woke up and found out Jason Sands came out. So I guess I'm a religious guy. I guess if you want to say that, and, I go to church and whatnot. So I tried to connect the two, and I tried to kind of figure out how each thing
how to square this up.
Yeah. How does it have its place? And so recently, as I was kind of digging into what Tucker Carlson was saying with Sean Ryan, he was talking about that spirituality aspect and how far back does this go? And he mentioned the ancient religions, not only Christianity or Judaism, but even with Hinduism and different things like that, how they all talk about these deities and, these supernatural beings coming down to earth. They all have some type of origin story. So he was kind of getting at, there's a supernatural aspect to this that mixes with spirituality somehow. And I don't know, I mean, have you thought about that and what that means? Because I think, to me, that's the biggest question.
Yeah, I find it fascinating, to be honest with you. I think that idea is totally plausible, at least part of it anyway. The idea that people interpreted the phenomena as X and wrote it down as Y, right? But it was this phenomena the whole time, right? And what that phenomena is anybody's guess, but this was how we interpreted it before, as these gods. Or it is the gods and the phenomena is them. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, they're projecting it or they're making it or whatever. It's just part of them. If that makes sense too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, I find it fascinating. What is the connection? Absolutely. And again, I find his comments, and he's so sure of it. We have an agreement, right? We being the U.S. government, not just like some people. Our government, like, who in the government? Like, is there a special office for this? Like, where is this being signed? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
What pen? I want that pen that they signed this with. Like,
yeah.
I just don't know. That's scary. With supernatural forces, what does that even mean? I speculated. I was thinking, I guess my heart, like, I was thinking, oh, good. Like, oh, we have an agreement with Jesus. People are like, no, it's demons, Patrick. You're getting it wrong. You don't understand oh, shit. I don't know. What the hell? He didn't say. He said supernatural forces. Why does your mind go demon, like evil?
Right.
Why can't it be, we're kicking it with Jesus on this? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, dude. Like, it's been a long time since I've gone to church. I used to teach Sunday school, actually, many years ago in a Baptist church for like 3-4 years, very involved. And, but it's been a while. So like when you hear Tucker talk about that, what do you interpret? When he says supernatural forces, and given maybe the history of other things he has spoken about, how do you interpret that? Do you interpret it that the US government is in agreement with like evil beings, like demons, as we would describe them, or what? How do you know what I mean?
Lord, I hope not.
That's what I'm saying. I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds horrible.
I really hope not. I mean, if this is, whatever life form this is that we talk about when it comes to NHI, as we call them these days, non-human
Yeah.
intelligence, aliens, whatever you want to say, biologics, maybe some of it is demons, and maybe some of it is interdimensional beings, and maybe some of it is, non-human intelligence that lives in another galaxy and has conquered space. Maybe it's all three, and that's what I kind of wrestle with that. It's like, what are we looking at? What are we dealing with? And if we do have an agreement, then which one is it with? And how long does that agreement last before time's up? You know? And so
And most importantly, what's in the agreement?
yeah, right.
What
Because
are we
honestly,
agreeing to?
I gotta say it. If you put, like the old adage, you put a gun to my head right now, and I have to make a decision on something, my decision would be to say that we absolutely have an agreement with something, some race of non-human intelligence, because if we didn't, then how could we possibly be okay with abductions if we believe in alien abductions? How can we be okay
Yeah.
with essentially these things flying over our skies and military installations and all these different things anytime they want? There's nothing we can do about it. So is it A, that there's just nothing we can do about it? We're so far behind the eight ball. Maybe that's even scarier if that's the case. If we're so far behind the eight ball that we're just lost. Or
Yeah.
is it B, we let them do their thing. We have our agreement. They're not going to go past that, and we're not going to go past that line. We have our line, and we're not going to cross it. So I guess that's the main question. I tend to go towards B, and I got to tell you, if I'm being honest, I think I'd rather be B, because I really don't want to believe that we are just so clueless that we have no idea what to do.
Wow.
That part scares me.
That's a good point. Just kind of asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's actually,
Yeah.
Carl Nell kind of touched on that idea at the SALT conference. He kind of mentioned that a little bit as to, what would prevent disclosure. And that might be one of the scenarios. It's just a unwillingness to acknowledge how helpless we are.
How inferior we
Yeah.
are in this situation. I mean, again, if we're saying this is true, that makes sense from a government stand. If you're running the government and you're back there having these meetings, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
It just
I mean,
does.
you kind of think about it, and maybe to use an analogy, you think about something like a movie like Armageddon or Deep Impact or something like that, or 2012, any disaster movie where the Earth's going to be destroyed. What happens? They don't tell anybody about it because they
Of
know there's
course.
nothing they can do.
There'd be panic.
Right. So, is that the type of, no, I'm not saying the Earth's going to be destroyed, you know what I mean? But
No,
is that
but
the type of scenario? They know there's nothing they can do about it. They don't have answers on
sure.
it, so they just keep denying. I don't know.
Sure. No, I mean, I 100% agree. Honestly,
Yeah.
I do. Look, let's change topics here a little bit because I do want to talk to you about a few more things before
Yeah.
we end this. You recently had I can't remember his name, Scott. I think his name is Scott.
Right. Scott Broder.
The lot. Okay, yes. This Las Vegas alien video. So if you can, just for our viewers here and listeners, kind of a quick summary of the Las Vegas incident and like
Yeah.
where you're at with Scott with this video, right? That's
Yeah.
out and everything. Yeah, just
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think we all remember last May, I think it was around mid-May, Las Vegas story came out, police cam dashboard video. we have this green light streaking through the sky in Las Vegas. Everyone chalked it up to a meteor. There's, all the characteristics of that. But then you have the Kenmore family in Las Vegas, this kid Angel, one of the members of the family, calling 911 saying that there's these 8 to 10 foot tall alien looking beings in their backyard and they're really scared. The police come out there, they investigate it. The police are scared. They don't know what to do. We have 13 minutes of missing body cam footage from the police as they went into the backyard, which we still haven't seen.
I didn't know that.
But by the way,
I
so
didn't
we
know
still
that.
haven't seen that.
Oh.
And no one really knew what to make of it. All we had from it was a home video from the mother, I believe it was, of the Kenmore family as she was filming the men in the family walking into the backyard with weapons.
Oh, that's the mom filming that.
Right.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you
so
for clearing
she's
that up.
filming and they're all walking in and then we see them run out scared. It's kind of something out of like, you would see in the movie Signs, like an M. Night Shyamalan type of scene.
Totally.
It's really what it reminded me of, right?
Yeah, totally.
So we didn't know what to make of it. Angel came out and did a whole video. He gave an explanation last year. And then that was the end of it. They don't want to do any interviews. No one knew what to say or if it was real. Enter Scott Roeder. So a few months ago, Scott Roeder was approached by Ross Coulthart, actually. He and Ross are friends because Scott Roeder has done work in Australia, where, of course, Ross resides and, does work there and everything. And Scott does work there as a crime scene reconstruction expert. He does work all around the world, actually. South Africa, he worked on the Oscar Pistorius case. You remember him, the Olympian? They called him the Blade Runner. And he got accused of killing his wife. So he's kind of like this world-renowned crime scene reconstruction expert. Okay. So Ross knew that Scott was, kind of into aliens on the side. He's curious about it. So Ross said, hey, have you seen this thing in Las Vegas? What do you think about this video? So Scott ended up doing his own, and Scott explains this when I spoke to him, by the way. So if you haven't heard that on the episode, Scott can probably explain it better than I can if you go back and listen. But he went back and looked at the video and kind of used his tools with his investigative team to break down that video, that home video that was taken on the cell phone, to say, is this a real video? And the answer was yes. So according to Scott Roeder, he says, and this appeared on News Nation, like this was reported on. And he was on with, I want to give credit, but I forget the guy's name. Jim Quirk, maybe. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right.
I think you are correct.
I think so, right? But so he was on with him and talked about it a little bit. And Scott came on with me and explained all this and said, hey, look, I was able to show that there are 8-foot beings in this backyard. It's not a shadow that's coming over the fence. That's a cloaked being. It's using some type of cloaking device. So he was on the show. He was on UAP, and we went over this, and it's fascinating. Wow. Like, it brought me back to the Vegas case. I was kind of done with it, to be honest with you. But it brought me back to it because of what he's presenting. Like, this guy's the real deal. He knows what he's talking about and how to break this stuff down.
Wow. So he has video that you can see of him breaking it down and showing, okay, this is a shadow being, right? I think I saw some of that on News Nation. I believe I made a video about that too. Yeah, it's fascinating. So where's it at now? Where as the case stands now, like what's happening?
So where we're at right now, as of today, when you and I are speaking, Scott is not done with this yet. He's actually showed me, and I hate doing that because I feel like here's the fishing line, here's the bait, you know what I mean? But I'm just telling you how it is. He's showing me what else they found in this video.
Yeah. And, okay.
Dude, this is an alien. I mean, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Like, it is the clearest picture. It's actually kind of frightening. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was freaked out.
Wow.
And okay, so can I give you a little backstory on this?
Yeah.
So after I had Scott on the show, our interview went great. I'm not patting myself on the back. It was just one of those things where we clicked.
Go ahead. You can.
You can. I hate doing that. We clicked and everything just went great in the interview. He loved talking about it all and everything like that. So we just kind of hit it off to where we ended up speaking after the show, right? He called me. We talked more about everything. And there was one night, probably about a week after we spoke, he FaceTimed me. And I haven't spoken about this anywhere else actually. So this is an exclusive about how all this came about.
Breaking news, people. Here we go.
He FaceTimed me and said, he's like, Steven, you have to see what I'm seeing. He's like, because when I was on your show, I mentioned that we have more work to do on this. We have proven, again, these are Scott's words, we've proven that there is some type of non-human intelligence in that backyard. He's like, there's no doubt about it. It's not a fake video. There is something there, and they experienced it. And he's saying, we proved that with our evidence recreation technology, AI technology that they use to, basically take out any other possibilities. He mentions the opacity. I know this is kind of technical, but he said
opacity.
He's basically the shadow area, which is the alien head over the fence, that has only 33% opacity, where everything else is like 100%. So he's like, that proves that there's something there, but it's being cloaked. So he's like, we've proven. I actually asked him on the show. I said, Scott, if you were in the courtroom setting like you're used to being in, he's in Australia right now as we speak, and doing a case. And I said, if you're in a courtroom setting and this was the case, would you go up in front of a court of law, in front of a jury, and make the case for this and say this Vegas case is real? His answer was yes, 100%. He's like, there is no doubt. From my experience, from what I found, this is him talking, from what I found, my team and I have discovered, he's saying this is real. There was an alien in that backyard.
Wow.
So fast forward now, about a week after we spoke, he's like, look, there's more stuff in this video. I'm going to come out with it later because I have this case in Australia. I got to come back and work on it more. And when we do, I'm going to release what else we found. What else he found is what he showed me over FaceTime. And this is an alien face. I'm not getting chills right now even thinking about it. I'm not going to lie. I was sitting in another room in my house talking to him because I have a wife and kids, and it was like 7:30 at night. So it's an active household at 7:30 at night. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I was like, look, I got to go to another room and talk to this guy. It's like a serious conversation. I came out of the room, and my wife looked at me, and this has never happened before, where I've gotten off the phone with somebody, and I've had some pretty heavy conversations, like with Anthony Williams we were talking about before.
Sure.
And she looked at me. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, and I was speechless. I just shook my head. I'm like, it was just a lot in the conversation. That's what I told her. She's like, "Yeah, I can tell." And I was just because I was freaked out. I mean, even thinking about it now, it's freaky. He showed me an up close alien.
It's a screenshot.
Face.
It's like a screenshot.
Yes.
In the same video that the mom shot.
Right.
Somewhere in this video, there's more. They found something else
in the background.
That's a face of an alien.
Yeah.
What does it look like? How would you describe this face?
Triangle face, almost like a classic gray.
Oh, okay. I see.
Like that elongated face. You know what I mean?
I see. Yeah.
But almost more triangle-ish. It was weird.
Wow.
So,
like pointy, like pointy-ish almost.
Yeah, like it wasn't. Because the grays and even the tall grays, which in this case you would think it was a tall gray, right? We're talking about 8-foot beings, so they would
above
have
the fence, right? Yeah.
Right. Where they would have that elongated face. Skinny here, a bulbous head.
Yeah.
This was more triangle-ish, which makes, and I just thought about this right now while we're talking about it. Are we talking about some type of, mantoid type of alien then, and not a gray? Because
what if there's multiple?
Yeah.
There on scene, I mean, right? Why does it have to be just the one? Like, that's interesting.
I swear to you, I just thought about that because when he showed me the picture, it freaked me out so much. I almost didn't want to see it anymore. So I was trying to put it out of my mind. But now as I'm talking about it and thinking back on it, it was like this triangle-ish shape. So I wonder, maybe that wasn't a gray. I don't know. And
he's going to release this to the public.
Yes.
You said, oh, it had big eyes?
Yeah.
Was there any color to it?
It was kind of like a thermal view. So it's
how close up? Like, was it the whole frame of your phone, or was it like in the distant, or you know what I mean? You had to zoom in on it, or like
they zoomed in to where it was like this.
Got it.
So pretty close.
Got it. Wow, dude. And you
It's
could
crazy.
definitely see structure of a face, like without a doubt.
100%. It's like if you're looking at a
Wow.
picture on somebody's phone of a guy in his family.
Could you see detail of skin and everything?
Not really. Um, it was more of just like a, I don't even know if I'm using the right word when I say thermal. It was, I guess that's the right word for it, because it was like heat. It looked like heat signatures,
Got it.
if
Got
that
it.
makes
I
sense.
see what you're saying. Sure, like Predator when they in the movie,
Yeah,
like Predator, like that. Like, okay.
right.
Interesting.
And I haven't said this anywhere else, so I'm not,
Wow.
stepping on Scott's
Wow.
investigation or what he's going to put out there. But I mean, I
Well, that
creepy,
photo
man.
is what everybody's going to want to see that photo now, right? Like
Yeah,
that's it. That's the
just
meat.
be
Well, that's
prepared.
crazy. That's cool. Well, and he's going to have all this stuff to back it up, right? It's not like he's just
Right. He's
whatever,
going to
right?
become
So,
right.
yeah, showing how he got to that point, right? And
So
how
my
certain
plan
he
is,
is of what it is in that photo, right? That's
eh,
also because you can have the
yes,
screenshot in the picture and you developed it and you got that, but then determining what it is, how, what kind of
right.
technology do we possess to determine that? I don't.
No, that's 100% my thought process too. So, and he has his own show, so I'm not trying to steal his thunder by any
Yeah, yeah,
means.
for sure. Wow,
But
that's. I look forward to that.
he's gonna, no, me too, and he's gonna
When
present
are we
it.
thinking on this? Like
I'm
soon? Like a
hoping,
month? Like a week? Next year?
I'm hoping late June or early
Okay.
July, just from what he told
All
me,
right.
because the cases he was working on, the criminal cases he was working on,
Sure.
versus what he really wants to do it, which is this. Um,
Sure.
so he
So
just
he
has to
has it
back
kind
me
of
on.
all ready to go. He just needs to put the final touches on it and present it,
Yes, exactly.
essentially. Yeah, I get it.
Exactly right.
I totally
So
get that.
my plan is, once he's got it all buttoned up and he's presented it the way he's wanted to present it on his
You're
own
gonna have him
terms,
on again, right?
I'd love to. Right, I want to have him back on
Yeah, of
and
course.
actually ask just that, what you were saying. Walk us through it. Put up the image. Walk us through it. How is this real? Tell us how you got this, and show us the process, the evidence gathering process, the forensic
Oh
evidence that you
man.
used to get this picture.
Can't wait to see this. This is
It's insane.
exciting. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exciting, man. That's exciting. Wow, that's cool. I mean, good luck with that. That sounds great. I'm definitely going to be following that. Tag me on Twitter so I know when it's happening, as I
for sure.
definitely want to know. I'll make a video on that. That's super cool. It's so funny how some things can seemingly die off and then something comes back to bring it, back around. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. People, wrote it off. Don't write it off, folks. We
you
don't
never
know.
know.
Look, let's, I think this last topic here we'll bring up that I want to bring up with you, which is, I think initially when we were going to do this, it was on Twitter and, I know Michael Herrera came up and, I haven't interviewed Michael Herrera personally, but I interviewed Joey Is Not My Name, who did Michael Herrera's investigation, sort of like independent investigation. And then that led me to Nathan, who was Michael's team leader during that time. That they were in the military together. And up until this point, that is the only interview Nathan has done, and really the only person connected to Michael in any way that has done an interview.
Right.
But I remember somewhere in the tweets, it was like, hey, I would love to talk to you about Michael Herrera and, this, that, the other. So, like, I don't know. Let's just jump into it. What do you think have you interviewed Michael Herrera before or
Yeah,
spoken to him?
yeah. We've done two different interviews, I believe, and they were both last year. There was the first one was after, if you remember, the
The
disclosure
press club?
conference.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm at this conference and invited by a couple of people who were involved with Danny Sheehan at the time, and Stephen Greer, some of the things that were going on then last June. And I was like, sure, I'll come and see what this is. I didn't know what to expect. And there I saw Michael Herrera along with DC Long and Eric Hecker and all these different guys who were at that conference. And from there, I'm like, I have to talk with Michael Herrera. And apparently he doesn't do a lot of interviews, which I didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate enough that he said yes to me. I don't know why. He said he just felt like he could trust talking to me. Thank you. That's awesome. So him and I spoke back in June for the first time. Obviously, we're familiar with his story. And then we spoke again in October, I think it was, of 2023. And that went even further in depth, where he was talking about, being taken to a black site, being shown where these experiments are happening on people. They're taking people from third world countries with psionic abilities and using these people to take down UFOs and make psychic connections with aliens and bringing down the craft so we can reverse engineer them. Just incredible claims. And of his original claim that you spoke to Nathan about, where he came across this floating UFO in the jungles when they were on this mission. So that's kind of the background there. I spoke to a couple of times, and I know you spoke to Nathan, and there's some differing opinions there. So it's been pretty interesting.
Yeah, what did you think of Nathan's testimony? I'm curious.
Honestly, I didn't know what to think of it. It was startling, because when I heard it, I'm like, geez, this guy knows Mike, and I feel like I've known Mike pretty well now, because even outside of the 2 times that we spoke on UAP, he and I had numerous phone conversations, like 45-minute, hour-long conversations. So I'm like, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on who Michael Herrera is, and I feel
Yeah,
like he's coming from a place of sincerity,
yeah,
which was a big deal for me, because these are incredible claims,
sure.
of secret government experiments and reverse engineering programs and all these different things. So when I heard Nathan come out and say that basically Michael's making it up, I'm like, well, shoot, I hope that's not the case. Like, I've never felt that way. So I texted Michael, um, I think a couple of days after Nathan appeared on your show. And I asked him, like, hey, look, what do you think? Now, Michael doesn't really want to do a lot of appearances. I've asked him a bunch of times, dude, come back on the show, and he basically just doesn't answer. He's like, no, I'm good. Like, a couple of times, just like, not right now. I'm just really busy. But other
Yeah,
times, like, oh, no answer. Okay, I get it. You don't want to do it anymore. But we went back and forth a little bit when it came to Nathan, and what he said was, and I made a little video about this on Twitter. So again, I apologize if I'm repeating myself, if anybody saw it. But Mike's response is essentially, Nathan is a liar, and Nathan and he hate each other. And Nathan basically this is all Mike. This isn't me. Nathan saying that, basically Nathan's trying to tear down Mike because he's jealous of Mike and his success, and wants to tear him down and make him seem like the liar. And Mike says he has all the proof on his side, and Nathan has nothing. They've only ran one mission together, and he's just trying to tear him down.
yeah,
So that was Mike's explanation, and I just, I kind of went with that, because I don't know how Nathan came across to you. I've never spoken to Nathan. I don't know, if you how you felt when speaking to him, if it was believable or if he was a guy who had a grudge. So I can only go based off of what my experience with Mike.
sure. I mean, I met Nathan through Joey Is Not My Name. And he really wanted to hear Nathan's like full testimony. And I don't know, he just asked, hey, would you want to go on Patrick's show? And he showed him the first video I made. And Nathan, this is what Nathan told me. He's like, oh, yeah, I saw the video. I was like, oh, okay, good production. He's like, screw it. I'm tired of trying to answer people in YouTube comments. And then I think I was just right place, right time. I don't think it was me specifically. I think he was just ready to finally tell his story.
Mm.
And, Joey Is Not My Name asked him, and he came on and we spoke, and we barely spoke before we recorded the interview, if that makes sense. Like, we spoke a little bit on Facebook Messenger, and then we just jumped in.
Yeah.
Like, there was no, fluff to it. It was all basically what you see. I put basically everything in that video, just cutting out stupid ums and, stuff in between that didn't matter.
Sure.
But the meat and potatoes was all there. I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, and this is only because I haven't spoken to Michael, I felt Nathan was very credible, in my opinion. He felt like guys that I've worked with in the past in kitchens. I'm an ex-chef, just no bullshit dudes, ex-military. I could just tell right away. My father was in the Air Force. I have a lot of family members in the military. I could just tell right away, oh shit, this guy's like a real Marine. This guy's like no BS.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean, he doesn't have a little bit of, a grudge or a chip or this or that, or I don't know. That I can't. That's too hard for me to judge.
Right.
I'm more just concerned with I was more concerned with just letting him tell his side of the story, which is why I want to have Michael on. Let him tell his side of the story, and then people decide.
Right.
That's all it was. And Nathan told his side, and I let him tell it, and I tried to ask the questions I thought. What do I believe? I don't know. I don't know, dude. But
It's a
I would
tough
love
one.
to talk to Michael. Yeah, it's a tough one. Again, it's the same thing with like Jason saying. It's like if I'm going to believe Michael, then I have to believe this whole other thing that comes with it.
Yeah. Right.
And I have to assume all of this is true, and that's just a lot to take in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of holes there, and I don't know, man. At the end of the day, I just want to present things like we basically, like you said at the very beginning, present things out, let people decide for themselves. Try to give the details or whatever, and just let people decide for themselves. Is Michael's story fascinating? Absolutely.
Right. Right.
Is it intriguing? 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
hard. I honestly don't even know what else to say on it because
What is there to say? It's like it just stands what it is. They give their
yeah.
we weren't there. We weren't there. What do we know, right? It's
Right.
like
Again,
I'm sure Michael's a nice guy. I'm sure Nate. Like I don't
yeah.
want any part of any beef. I don't have beef with
Right.
either of the guys, with
Right.
Nathan
Right.
or with Michael. I don't. I'm sure Michael's not happy with Vetted and with me, and feels I'm this, that, the other, and I can't control what people think of me.
Right.
Essentially, and when you put stuff out, so I get it, but I did try to get Michael on.
Yeah.
So what else can I do
Yeah.
at that point? I hope he doesn't take it personally. That's it. Yeah, I hope he doesn't take it personally. I don't mean it personally.
No, for sure. And I know it's yeah, man, it's hard because there's two guys who are really adamant about their stories and adamant about their stances.
Yeah,
And maybe what Nathan is saying is his truth. You know what I mean? Maybe there's two versions of the truth. I don't know because
100%,
it,
100%.
it could be, maybe he's coming from a place of sincerity, the same place that Mike is. Mike has a different version of things and has had different things happen to him. Again, this is just me speaking personally in the conversations I've had with Mike Herrera on and off the show.
Totally.
It's hard for me to dismiss what he's saying because of the conversations that we've had. I think he's coming from a place of sincerity. And as
Sure.
incredible as his claims are, I think he's telling the truth about what he's experienced.
Sure.
Because that's just my feel. You know what I mean?
Well, but you've had personal conversations. Like, I get it. That's a big difference to somebody just seeing him in interviews, which is why I wanted to talk to him too, because just seeing interviews, you just don't, it's not the same thing.
Right.
And, talking to somebody.
It's true. And I think that's why I feel that way, because what would somebody like Michael Herrera have to gain by talking to me on the phone to convince me of his story? Like coming on the show and trying to convince somebody of something so you can make money off of it, that's a different story, right? But there's two things to that. Number one, Mike doesn't need money, like at all.
Yeah.
And number two, he didn't do that. Like he wasn't trying to make any money off of being on my show by any means. He wasn't trying to raise anything. There wasn't any type of crowdsourcing or anything like that, or crowdfunding going on. And if he was doing that, then why would he spend hours on the phone with me in personal conversations? For what? What does he have to gain by trying to convince me of something? And that's just my opinion. That's just the way I look at it. So
Sure.
I guess that's just how I try to justify an incredible situation in my own head.
I get it. Man. Absolutely. Yeah, no, his story's fascinating. I'm glad we talked about him and Nathan. It was good to get your reaction to that. I don't get to talk to too many people about that, other creators, when you're doing an interview, because as no matter how you think an interview went, there's always going to be people later on that go, you didn't ask this question. You didn't do this. You didn't say that. You didn't get to, okay, dude.
Right.
What the hell, man? I'm trying my best here,
Actually, on that note, real quick before we go, because I know we've spoken for a while, and I love talking to you, man. So thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of
No,
fun.
this has been this has been awesome.
It's great. But I want to mention something because I don't want people to come at you and say, "Well, why didn't you ask him this?" Because there's a question that I get for the past year now, and it's my own fault. There's no one to blame but me. There's a question that I get, and I'll take the blame on it, about a video that I came out with last July, I think it was. And maybe it was when I first started to get, I hate to say the term notice, like I'm famous or something, but when people started to maybe pick up on who I was or pick up on the show or
Sure. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
I put out this video saying that there was going to be raids on black site, these government black sites that were holding reverse engineered technology, that there were going to be these like special forces raids, and they were going to
Holy
come in
shit.
and they were going to, take the technology and show it, improve it. And that was information that was given to me last year around the time of the disclosure conference. So use your imagination. Okay. That raid never happened. So when I came out with that video last July, the timeline I was given was the raid was going to happen in September of 2023. And this is the first time I've spoken about this, by the way, since I made that video last year. And I still get called out to this day on Twitter by people saying, "Where's your raids, Steven? Huh? Where's your raids?" And it's like, guys, it's not my raids. Okay. It's just something I was told about. I'm sorry. And
Bro,
this
I
is,
still get that blue alien thing. I still get it. So I get it. Like
I,
it'll never go away.
it'll never go away. And this is why when I said earlier, it's like my biggest fear is I'm going to be given information that is incorrect or
Yeah.
purposely incorrect to make me look bad or anything like that. And I don't know if
Totally.
that's what happened here with the raids. From what I've been told,
Or it got canceled, like it was going to happen, but it just for whatever reason. Yeah.
listen, what made me so confident enough to come out on video, I did like a 15-minute video. I spoke way too long about it. It was like it was like a 15-minute video where I said what was being planned, that they were going to go into these sites and do all this stuff and take the technology and whatnot, and it was going to happen in September. It never happened. But the reason why I felt so confident is because I was shown conversations, screenshots of conversations from the people who were planning this. These were, Patrick, these were real conversations. This wasn't just like someone whispered in my ear and said, "Hey, Steven, there's going to be raids. Pass it on." Like,
Yeah.
I was showing pages of conversations showing that this was going to happen and that this was in the planning stages.
Wow.
And I'm like, "Can I talk about this?" And I was told, "Yeah, go ahead, talk about it, but you can't just give like too many specifics on it." So that's what I did. And it never happened. And maybe it's for the better. I don't know, because it was going to get pretty bad, according to the plans anyway. And it hasn't happened. Now, is that to say that it won't happen? I don't know. Apparently, it's still an idea that's floated out there. But I'm not coming out anymore and saying that it's going to happen. All I'm going to say is that it's an idea that's still being floated around, and whether or not it happens is beyond me. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Was that the same person that like gave Mike, that met Michael Herrera there? Like, is that the same insider?
That's not where I got the information from. I think what it turned into was guys like that were going to help, but that's not where it came from originally. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Like, do you want to say, like, I don't know, maybe you've spoken about this, you haven't? I don't know. I'm just curious. Like, you were at this conference and they approached you, someone came up and approached you and said, "Hey, I've got this information," or?
It was actually after the conference. It was maybe about a month after.
Okay, so you get like an email.
Yeah,
of sorts. Got it.
pretty much. Written communication.
Written
You could say.
communication. Got it.
Email, text, showing, "Hey, take a look at this."
From someone you know or you didn't know?
Someone that I ended up knowing after the conference.
Got it.
And we got to a point where we were talking enough to where there was trust there.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Hey, I want to let you in on something."
Yeah.
Okay.
Do
I
you
kind
still
of
use
regret.
that source to this day?
I keep in touch with them, but I don't really use them very much anymore.
Because you feel burned by the rate thing a little bit. I don't blame you, dude. I would feel a
Yeah,
little
I
bit,
mean,
even though there's all these things that we said, right? Like it could be this, it could be that, it could still
yeah,
happen. I get, like, personally, right? You'd be like, damn it, dude, I put myself out there, right? Like I'm
yeah,
stuck to it. No matter what the truth is, people are going to associate me with this for, nothing I can do about it. And there's a
yes,
thumbs up just to add a little extra.
outstanding. Perfect timing. So
Fucking goddamn technology. So I can't turn that shit off, man. I get balloons sometimes. I get lasers. I'm an old man. I don't know how to turn it off.
I wouldn't
So
even know how
annoying.
it appeared. I don't even know how
It's
those are
so
there.
annoying. I don't either. I don't even know what I did. I just talking. It just
The computer likes what you're saying, I guess.
I guess AI. Yeah, exactly. No,
Good
that's
job.
interesting. Well, look, I
Yeah.
don't blame you. You went through that. You know,
I
I'm
think
sure
their
you still
heart,
keep in contact, but
yeah, and I think their heart was in the right place. I don't know if it was an intentional thing. I think they were just trying to show me, like, hey, I trust you. Here's what's going on, and go ahead and put
sure,
this out there.
sure.
Try to be the first one
Well,
to
what
say
did
it,
he
type
say
thing.
after it didn't happen? What did he say to you? Why did he
Nothing.
must have told you why it didn't? Nothing. He didn't say.
Honestly, dude, I never even brought it up again.
Really?
I was just so kind of like
Hmm.
not turned off, but almost in a way like I was almost freaked out by it a little bit because I was like,
Interesting.
I was kind of scared to say it in the first place because I
Sure.
kind of felt like I was in over my head a little bit.
Yeah. Oh,
Like these
totally.
were, you know what I mean? Like these were forces I shouldn't be messing with, but I'm like, man, I got like this juicy scoop. I want to get it out there, and
Totally.
you live and you learn.
Yeah.
So once when nothing happened, I was just kind of like, I'm just gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna pretend like we never even had this conversation.
Sure.
So it
No,
is
well, I
what it is.
appreciate you explaining it. I think some people can relate. You're a human being. You're trying to, bring people information, and some things are just, it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just part of the game. So no, man. Well, look, this has been awesome, dude. Steven, I've super enjoyed this conversation. I'm glad whoever suggested for us to talk. Thank you. This was awesome. I want to make sure people check out your show. Where do you want, besides your show, just, Spotify app, like where all the places to check out your show, follow you on Twitter, where do you want
Yeah.
people to connect with you?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's at UA Podcast 850. So just one P. So you won't be putting in UAP Podcast. So it's just at UA Podcast 850 on Twitter, on TikTok, um, YouTube at UA Podcast. So those are kind of like the three main channels that I kind of deal with. But for the whole episodes, for the full show, you want to go to pretty much any podcast platform. Spotify, Apple are obviously the two biggest, but it's on all of them, Amazon and like Google and all that different type stuff. And it's great, man. I mean, to see, just thank you to, and if anybody has listened to the show, I just want to say personally, thank you for listening and for taking me in and for trusting what I do. I'm just a normal guy. Like I'm a guy with a family. You know what I mean? Like I take my kids to Disney World. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we go to church on Sundays. Like so, for people to take to the show, not only to the show, but to me, the way that they have, it means the world. Like I can't overstate it. So I just want to say thank you personally to anybody who's listened and who enjoys it. It's awesome. So hopefully you continue to enjoy it. And if you haven't heard it, just search, UAP wherever you get a podcast. It'll pop up if you just search UAP. And I've enjoyed it too, Patrick. This has been awesome. I've been an admirer from far. I think you do great work. So
Thank
it
you,
was a
man.
thrill for me to come on your show, man. This has been really great. I appreciate you having me on, and for spending all this time.
Oh, dude, this was awesome, man. We'll do it again. I'm sure we'll catch up, down the road again for sure. I love talking to you about this different stuff, to be honest with you, and get your perspective. And you've had your own great interviews and bringing out information and stuff and helping with this. So look, the fact that you're willing to just come and talk and right again, like you said, I can relate to that comment, that last part, just normal guy, just looking into this, right? Just,
That's it.
Yeah. I eat my ice cream in a cone like everybody else. Okay.
Right.
That's just normal dudes here. So yeah, man, Steven, this was awesome. Thank you again. And please, everybody go check out his show, go subscribe, go follow him on Twitter. And what, anything exciting coming up on the show we should know about?
Yeah, I'm
Interviews?
actually, yeah, I'm working on a couple things. I mentioned Scott Roeder. So hopefully within the next 4 weeks, I would say, hopefully
Awesome.
4 to 6 weeks, maybe I'll get him back on and we'll dig back
Yeah.
into the Vegas alien situation and show that new evidence that he has of the secondary alien that they found in the yard. So I'm looking forward to that, maybe more than anybody, and just some other stuff. I'm hoping that I can talk to Nick Pope. I'd love to have him on again from Ancient Aliens. He's a great guy. He's always willing to come on the show. And the UK is actually coming out with some documents about how they would respond to disclosure. So, he was part of the Ministry of Defense.
I
Yeah, it's
interviewed
really
Nick
interesting.
Pope. He was like the first. He was. He was the
Was he?
first thing I did for Vetted. Period. Was interview him before we ever launched. I interviewed Avi Loeb, Nick Pope, and Mick West. All three.
Fantastic.
Just boom, just to get it.
Yeah.
Let's before we launched the show. I didn't even know what I was doing. I
It's
didn't know what I
awesome.
was asking. I didn't know what was going on. I had no clue. Great guy. He was so nice,
He's great.
so
Yeah.
passionate. I would love to talk to him again. So yeah, that's awesome. So
Yeah,
cool. I'll look
he's
forward to that.
fantastic.
That'll be a great conversation, man.
Yeah,
That's
look forward
awesome.
to maybe having him on again. And then just actually touching on something that you and I spoke about earlier. I want to try to dig more into the spirituality side of things and see
Dude, you got to get
where
Pasolka
that takes
on.
me. Who's that?
Pasolka, Diana Pasolka. You got to get her on, dude.
I have her name written down in my notebook, and I got to try to reach out to her. It's so funny you said that.
Dude,
Yes.
spiritual, right? Like that. I could see you guys having a phenomenal conversation.
I have heard. It's so funny you said that. I do. I have her name written down, so I should try to reach out to her. So yeah,
man.
a lot of ideas floating around. So I'm gonna try to make it all happen.
Awesome, man. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on, Steven. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.